Did you yell America when you hit the accelerator?
Oh, no.
And now, your favorite two blue-collar nobodies to give you their quiet perspective, Star-Lord and Joey.
You can't handle the truth!
Alrighty, welcome aboard, Flyers. This is your captain speaking, Star-Lord. Welcome back to another episode of The Quiet Perspective. Here is my co-pilot, Joey.
What's going on?
Today's episode, we are going to be talking about something that is currently going on. We're going to be talking about Pride Month, Gay Pride Month, LGBTQXRZ Pride Month, our feelings and thoughts about it. Today's going to be a special show, just a little bit. We have our local Jew affiliate out there who is going to give us his perspective. I introduced to you our Jew reporter, Aaron. I like to call him Socks, so get used to that. That is what we are going to be calling him. Introduce yourself.
Shalom, brethren. Thanks for having me.
So the best part about this show, I think, is we're going to get out of our normal echo chamber a little bit. Socks here, I was talking to him on Xbox, and I was bringing up Pride Month, and he had a little bit of an opposing view, or a little bit of a different view, and I wanted to flush that out more into the show. I wanted to get out of the echo chamber that we can have an actual discussion. We were just talking about how we all feel that that's important to get different perspectives out there and have a civil discourse out there instead of what we normally see, especially in Facebook forums where people are screaming and yelling and just calling each other names and nothing ever gets fucking accomplished.
Well, no, yeah, that's like we were talking about. I mean, and this is nice because, like you said, he it's not necessarily he totally disagrees with what you're saying, or even if he does on some point. We've tried to get, I know I personally have tried to get 3 or 4 different people on here that I've had Facebook debates with, and they just literally won't have anything to do with it. And it's like, okay, well, so you just want to be a keyboard warrior, but you don't want to actually have the discussion. So
I definitely agree. I think that the invention of social media, while it has many benefits, it has also done severe damage to adults' ability to have open-minded and respectful civil discourse, especially on issues that I feel many of us have emotional ties to, whether that be politics or religion. Joey, as you mentioned, keyboard warriors, people these days, they just, as soon as somebody has a differing view, rather than approaching it with an open mind and hearing what this person has to say, if they have logical and intellectual points to make that about their perspective, we just fly to all caps mode is on and we're just shouting insults at this person. So yeah, I really appreciate y'all having me on for this episode, because I think it's important now more than ever in our society for people to be able to have discussions like this.
That's awesome. Yeah, I hope this goes really well. And just to kind of leap off of that real quick too, you said social media is really pushing us downward. I think we could have a whole nother episode on that. But I think because of social media, you see a lot of physical, actual actions outlashed that are completely elevated beyond what they should be. People are getting so quote unquote triggered easily now and blowing up buildings or running people over and stupid shit because they don't know how to handle their own feelings anymore because they're used to just screaming and yelling on Facebook, you know what I mean?
well, and it's weird to me because, like I said, the people I've tried to invite are people that I got into pretty heated debates with.
I've seen them, yeah.
And it's like, hey, come on the podcast and let's talk about it. And they don't want to do it. And it almost leads me to believe that they're just parroting shit that they've heard, or they've got a website pulled up about what we're talking about. They've already got their notes together for their comment, and that's all they have. They don't really know what they're talking about.
Shoot, I've seen people copy and paste things straight off of Google.
Yeah, and I don't have all the answers. I have my opinion, and I'll tell you what I think, why I think it, and yeah, if I got like facts to back it up, obviously I'm gonna put that in there too. But I'm also not gonna get into an argument with somebody that I know I can't win, or that I don't know anything about really. That's
Yeah.
I don't know.
One of the big reasons I wanted to start this show, and Joey did it, and we convinced me to do it, is because there's a lot of times I'll start writing something on Facebook in the comment section, and then I just back it all up. It's like, what's the fucking point?
Yeah.
You're not gonna,
Joey,
you
just
can't-
to touch on something that you just mentioned, that you said you're not going to get into an argument with someone that you can't win. Is that is that
Well-
your mindset of I want to win this argument, or by win do you mean have a civil discussion and possibly open their mind?
Not that I'm gonna, not that there's a winner or a loser. It's
Okay.
I'm not gonna get into an argument I don't know what I'm talking about. I should have said it that way.
Absolutely.
Like
And
if I don't have facts to back up what I'm saying, I'm not gonna argue with somebody just to argue with them.
Yeah.
Because you
And,
can
I mean,
disagree with somebody and still not know why. But I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do that. You know.
I've been guilty of it as well. You know, I think we've all at one time or another got into some sort of a an argument or, you know, a conflict with somebody on social media where two differing opinions can clash. My whole thing, and this ties into just kind of who I am as a person, is I don't have all the answers. Like you just said, Joey, I don't know everything. There are some things that nobody knows the answer to, and I'm fine with saying, look, I don't know for sure. I don't speak things that I don't understand with certainty. And I've seen people do that before, whether they have a full grasp on an issue or not. They pass it off as though they do, as they're an expert or something of that nature. And I think that there's nothing wrong, and more people should get accustomed to saying, look, I don't know. I don't know enough about that topic to have an informed discussion on it, you know? So,
Well,
but
and
now
we're going to be
social
this
aspect.
subject matter we're talking about in this one here is that's a big one. It has to do with people who just want to follow a cause just to follow a cause, virtue signaling, but they're not informed. They don't know what the hell they're talking about, you know, or they're just doing it to say, look at me, you know.
Yep.
And that's
So let's
not
dive right
everybody,
into it then,
but-
since you say that, because that is one of the reasons why I didn't want to do this over Xbox chat with you, because I think there's a lot of disclaimers you got to get out of the way right off the bat with almost any issue you talk about nowadays, because everything is very trendy. Everything is on the top of everybody's mind. So we're talking about Gay Pride Month. Right off the bat, disclaimer, I want to tell everybody I don't hate gay people, queer people, transgender people, any of the letters in the whole thing. I don't hate you. I don't wish ill upon you. I want to get that out there right away, because the first defense everybody likes to jump to is you're a bigot, and they just start calling you names. So I want to throw that out there. I am saying this. I do not hate you. I do not hate your lifestyle. I am not against that at all. I would assume that everybody else here feels the same way.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I don't care. That's my opinion on what we're going to be, you know, what this is all about. It's like, I don't care, but here we are. It's being pushed in our face all the time.
So there we go. That's pretty much the meat and potatoes. How this started, we were talking about Pride Month or something on Xbox chat. We were playing Call of Duty Warzone, because that's such an awesome game.
It was the emblems things, the calling cards.
Yes,
is
the
what
calling
started
cards,
this
very good.
conversation.
It all started because it is June. It is Pride Month, and everybody. It is the status quo. It is the thing to get behind. All the companies are behind it. Coca-Cola, vodka, razors. Everybody's putting little pride flags on everything. And me personally, I feel that it's overreach. It's overboard. I think it's too much. I do not personally understand it. I disagree with it. And Sox had a differing point of view on that.
So my whole thing was it's kind of a two-pronged thing here. One is that I agree with you to an extent of the way that these companies hop on board with the virtue signaling during Pride Month, and they quote unquote shove it in your face, so to speak, with the calling cards, for example. We'll just use this as our current example. It feels disingenuous to me when these large multi-billion-dollar corporations hop on the bandwagon and they say, oh, it's Pride Month, so we're going to put out calling cards. I call bullshit on that, because if they genuinely cared about this demographic, this group of people, there was absolutely no reason that they could not have incorporated these emblems or calling cards to celebrate gay pride from day one.
Where are all these companies at the other 11 months of the year?
Exactly. You know, and
that's
what I'm
my
saying.
whole-
It feels disingenuous to me.
That's my whole issue
good
with all
point.
this. It has nothing to do with the way people are living their lives. It's the pandering that I can't stand. It's the
There we
virtue
go.
signaling and the pandering that to me, it's just, and what I can't get over is all these people that get behind all this shit. And I'm talking about people who aren't gay or any of these other things, but they want a virtue signal, they just eat it up. Like, they don't see what it is for what it is. You know, it's like, whatever.
God damn it! I think we just solved the entire show too quickly.
So
No, I like how y'all put that. That's absolutely awesome how you really got that. It's disingenuous. That is a perfect way to put that. And I think that is my biggest problem with the whole quote unquote movement is the disingenuous part of it. That is my biggest issue with it.
Yeah, I mean,
so I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
Joey.
No, go ahead. You go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say another aspect of this same can of worms that we've just opened is, I think, a societal thing. It's like, if you are a multi-billion-dollar company or corporation and you don't come out with some sort of, maybe it is virtue signaling, some sort of, you know, m- uh, action, an act that shows that you are on board with whatever the topic of the month
Yeah,
is,
you're
then you
automatically
have
against it.
you're pressured. You are pressured from outside forces, people on Twitter, Instagram influencers, and they say, "Oh, well, look at that! Activision and Call of Duty didn't do anything for Pride Month. They must not support the LBGTQIA plus community, because they didn't come out with anything." So then, almost as a company, you maybe feel like your back's up against the wall. You say, "Hey guys," you're sitting in a boardroom, a development meeting, and say, "Hey guys, it's Pride Month. We got to do something. People are gonna think that we don't support this group of people." So
Well, and
we
that
get mad
right
at
there
these
ties back
companies.
into social media, the way social media is fucked up, and social media determines what's right in the world these days. Why, if you just don't because you just didn't, that doesn't mean you don't support them. It just means you just didn't.
Yeah,
But
and I agree.
like you're saying, if a big company doesn't do something, if they don't put it out there and do their little virtue signaling for the month, then they become the bad guy. And I think
And
that's
see,
bullshit too.
and I think that brings this bigger picture to light. It's that, are you really mad at Activision for almost like being forced to do this in a way? Nobody said, "Hey, you better do this," but in a way, like I said, these societal pressures that exist in the world, especially for a multi-billion-dollar company, they're real and they exist, and they're going to say, "Hey, our sales are going to drop 15-20% if we don't do this, or people are going to boycott us if we don't do this." So really, are we mad at Activision here for doing it and participating in the virtue signaling, or should we be madder at society and the way that we have become as a culture, that
I get mad at
corporations feel
both.
pressured into this?
Yeah,
I get
the
mad at
whole
people not
thing.
having convictions and standing up and saying, "This is enough. Get off my dick."
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it all ties together. You're right. I mean, that ties in with me saying, you saying it's disingenuous, and me, it's all a show. It's a dog and pony show is all it is. Because they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. But like you said, hey, we might lose 15% sales. Well, what percentage of the United States or the world for that matter? Because like Call of Duty, for instance, is everybody in the world plays it. What percentage of the world is in that community? It's a pretty small
5.6.
percentage, right? So I'm
I
not
actually
saying they
have
don't
those
deserve anything, but I'm saying, again, the whole movement it started off with just gay people, decades ago. The whole movement was about they just want to have the same rights as everybody else. They wanted to be treated like everyone else. Well, now it's kind of gone the other way. Now they have a month. They have pride parades everywhere, and it's like now they want to be special is what I'm getting at.
Okay.
And so it's like, what do you want? Do you want to be normal, or do you want to be special?
So right off the bat, I want to say, God damn it, Sox, you were supposed to be not a part of the echo chamber, but you completely agreed with us on that whole point. But that's okay. I'm going to dive into this a little bit further to where we will disagree more to the point that we actually talked about. So, yeah, I think we all just came to a consensus here that it's the overreach part of it, the bullshit, the show, the dog and pony show they put on to pander to 5.6% of the population. And here's my issue with it. I don't think 5% of the population, the LGBTQIXRXZ community, is the issue. I think it's, and I'm going to just lump everybody into this category, it's the liberals on the left who want to push the agenda for them, that they're the issues. The rich white kids who have everything paid for by mommy and daddy, who are sitting at their, university, who just want to be a part of a trend and say, I'm with it, I'm cool, I think I really don't think it's I'm going to cut this down, the gay community. I'm going to call it the gay community, politically incorrect. I don't think the gay community is the one that's really the issue. I think it's the people on the fringe that are pushing it that are the issue.
Well, it's just, and that, that's a different subject, but it's just like the protests over these shootings and stuff, and you get Antifa, and BLM's fucked up too. I mean, that organization is fucked up. The idea is not, but you get all these people on the outside that just want to come in and cause trouble or make a big stink about something, and it's kind of the same thing.
Really good example. I like that. So let me dive a little bit further into it. So I think we all agreed we don't like the bullshit attached to it. We
That's
don't
my
have a
whole problem with it. I mean,
we don't have a problem with equal rights at all. I think gays and transgender, everybody should be able to do. Everybody should have equal rights. End of discussion.
right.
Everybody should be able to do the same things. Period. So I want to dive a little bit further into that. And going into the trans thing, I know we've talked about that.
Yeah, we had the whole episode about it, but here we are. I think I know where you're going with this. Are you fixing to bring up the weightlifter that's in the Olympics?
We can start there. They're pushing for their equal rights and everything. It does equal rights extend to a man who wants to say he's a woman and go compete against girls and kick their ass?
Yeah, I call total bullshit on that. I mean, that the Olympic Committee even allowed that is mind-boggling to me. But
can y'all give me a little bit of backstory on this? I don't know. I don't think I'm as informed on it as y'all are.
There's a guy he's lifted in competition. I think he's like 40-something years old, isn't he? 40-ish?
I'm gonna have to look this up.
I could be wrong on that
because
I think there's anyway. The Olympic Committee allowed this man who's competed as a man in men's division weightlifting against men before. He is supposed to be going to the Olympics and weightlifting in the women's division because he now identifies as a woman. And
yeah, I was looking at the particulars on this just the other day for a separate issue. He had not even placed in like 40 separate competitions as a man at all. And then upon saying, hey, I'm a woman now he's won 8 competitions, this and that, and just everything. And how this ties into what we're talking about here is this is a part of the bandwagon movement because it's LGBTQRX. If you're not a part of it, you're a bigoted piece of shit. Now, if you don't support this, you're a bigoted piece of shit. So, again, something's being hijacked in lieu of a movement that actually made sense and was a good thing to begin with.
So before I give my opinions on this weightlifter that y'all are referencing, is there anywhere in the discussion, just on a worldwide basis really, where people have discussed the possibility or the option of adding a trans men and a trans women division for different sports? Is that even a thing that people are talking about and considering? I honestly don't know.
That's
heard of it.
That could be a solution, but think about it. How many male transgender weightlifters are you going to be able to get together? There's such a small percentage of the population in general, just transgender people, period. Then you make it male or female weightlifters. You know what I'm saying?
Let me give you some numbers real quick, since we're going to be talking about it. A Gallup poll, I got an article here that talks about the LGBTQ community. In America, 5.6% of Americans are a part of that community. 5.6. So that's essentially all we're talking about, give or take a percent or two, maybe even more. Of that 5.6%, 54.6 would consider themselves bisexual. So of that that's only 3.1% of Americans bisexual. Of that 5.6, 24.5 are gay, and then 11.3% are trans. So when you do all the math, that only comes down to 0.6% of the American population that identifies as trans. That is an infinitesimal number. I mean, that is so small.
That's what, about 2 million people?
0.6? I can't even do the math.
What's the population of the United States these days? 365
300
million.
million, something like that. So there's a lot of capitulating for a 0.6%, and that's I do have an issue with that. I don't understand how social movements for such small, and again, it's not about rights to me. This is about special rights. Uh, a lot of this comes down to what bathroom to use. I don't think that has anything to do with rights. I think that has to do with anatomy. And when you're classifying people, what sport you should be playing with, I think that's the exact same thing. I don't think how you feel should matter. I think I talked about it in the other show. If I identify as a helicopter, does that mean Walmart needs to put in a helipad for me to use the bathroom? That's not the way that's not the way the world works, period. I don't care if you want to call yourself a man, female, this and that, but it shouldn't change how everybody else has to react to you. Pronouns, this and that. That whole movement. That's a movement. Maybe Socks, you have a different view on that. I hate the whole pronoun movement. You have to call me this and that, or you're a piece of shit if you don't call me this or that. Out of respect, I would personally do that. If you walk up to me and say, I want to be called this, I would most likely call you he, she, whatever the hell you want to. But to throw a fit or say that you're discriminated against because people aren't doing that, I think is a far, far reach. Well, it's definitely confusing when you have a thing called gender fluid, when the actual definition is you could literally be a man today and a woman tomorrow and then back to a man the next day. It's absolutely ridiculous. I truly believe that there's no normal, sane person who actually feels that. I believe that. And I would love to know if anybody else feels different. I don't believe trans fluid. I don't believe most of the trans stuff is a real thing. I really don't. Not a normal thing, anyway.
Well, it's definitely not a high percentage of people, obviously, either, if it is.
Okay, so y'all give me a minute to get caught up because we've touched on quite a few different things here, and then I'm
Just pick whatever you need to. Take your time.
I'm just I like to process each thing as y'all say it and fully understand it before I just
Do you want to get a pen and pad and keep up and
form a
write down?
response.
I'm serious. I write shit down just so I don't forget to miss something.
No, I don't write that fast. So anyway, all right, let's see. Let's go back to kind of where we began this segment about the transgender Olympian, right? And we were talking about the possibility of two separate categories, one for trans men, one for trans women. And Roy, you started talking numbers, and you're basically just saying that the population in the United States, we'll just use this country for example, is not great of trans people is not great enough to have a separate category, right? Was that
Kinda?
I can't see that there's that many Olympic caliber weightlifters that are also trans. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah, essentially that's what I'm saying. Yes.
Okay, and I mean, even though we can narrow it down to 0.06% of the United States population. I mean, we're still talking hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people. I mean, if a school district, if a 5A school district in Texas, each school, say there's 10 schools in the school district, each school has attendance of 1,500 students. If they can have enough players to get soccer teams on the field and football teams on the field, I think in the millions, even if it's spread throughout the entire country, is still a large enough population that you could have, a local weightlifting meet for trans people. And I think that people would travel for this, as many professional weightlifters do. They, some people, that's literally their career, not just a hobby, especially if you're talking about Olympic caliber. So I don't think that you'd have a hard time getting the sign up sheet to fill up. That's just my opinion. I know 0.06% sounds minuscule, which it is in the grand scheme of things, as far as demographics go. But I don't think that you'd have trouble finding enough people within that community. And you might not have 10,000 people showing up, but you might have 300 people signing up for it, and I think that's enough to narrow it down to the best.
Well, yeah, and they could do that.
The Olympics is a worldwide thing,
That's very good point, and I think you just hit on what I'm about to say. That is for the Olympics. Now, should we trickle that down to high school sports? much smaller scale. That would be every individual community.
And they're already doing it in different schools. We touched on that in the video we did before. There was a weightlifter in Texas last year, a guy who started identifying as a female, and he took the state championship, bulldozed through every wrestler in the tournament.
Yeah, we did. I had that.
It's a male in the girls division, and he just blew everybody out. And these girls have been working their whole, since however little they started wrestling through high school to get to the state championship, to the tournament. And then here comes this guy who decides he wants to be a girl. He's bigger, he's stronger.
Yeah,
and,
I do not think that is fair.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying about the whole thing.
So what would the solution be? So, I mean, again, we're kind of in agreement here. What would the solution be then at the more community level with trans athletes?
A trans category.
Even if, I mean, I don't think they would fill up in those communities.
Even down to the high school level. And the reason is this: as a straight white male in Texas who competed in sports for years and years and years and years, I had times where I'd show up to a track meet and there were 3 people from multiple schools enlisted in a certain event. So I mean, it happens, I mean, if you're
saying regardless of participation, you may be the only one showing up. That is your category in the discussion.
It happens, man.
I like it. I think that's a good solution.
If y'all say, oh, well, if we do a trans category at the high school level, you'd have 2 competitors. You fucking might, or you might have 20. But I mean, just because the population or percentage is smaller does not, in my opinion, mean that those people do not deserve to be included. Now, included to the point where they are competing in either the men's or the women's category? No, because I do still believe in the science of biology and anatomy behind these things. And I do believe that males, biologically grow larger, stronger, etc. than females. And I do not think that is fair to anyone, really, and especially as a competitor. Once again, touching on my previous experience with competitive sports, as a male, I would not want to go up against people who were biologically smaller, weaker, fast, slower, whatever it may be. As a competitor, that just, to me, that does not vibe with the nature of competitiveness as an athlete. So I really don't think it's fair to anyone to have them compete in a category that they are not.
Well, and see that,
not supposed to compete.
And I agree with what you're saying, but with that too, if say the Olympic Committee did do that, say they made, let's talk about wrestling specifically. If they made a transgender male division and a transgender woman division, this guy wasn't competing before the Olympics. He was no competition when he was going against other males. So basically, you're gonna why would you make a transgender division for males that are identifying as women? Then you're just putting them against other males.
Yeah, and that's fine. But at least you.
Well, then why shouldn't that guy have to qualify for the Olympics as a male though? What's the difference? So basically, you're making a division where somebody who couldn't hack it in the men's division, but now he's going to be in with other transgender men who couldn't probably hack it in the men's division. So you're letting, just because they identify as women, you're giving them their own spotlight at the Olympics?
I think, Joey, you're caught up between 2 different things. Whereas Sox here, whether it's capitulation or understanding, will give them what they want because of inclusion, non-discrimination, give them their own category, whereas you still want to fight the fact that it shouldn't be a thing. And I completely understand both sides of that argument.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, if you're a biological male and you identify as a woman, you would go into the transgender men division. But if you couldn't hack it in the men's division, why create a weaker division just to include them? In other words, if a guy's like him, like the guy we're talking about, and which is why he's doing it, I think he couldn't do shit against men, in lower skill competitions, but now he's in the Olympics as a woman.
All right, so let me ask you this, Joey, playing devil's advocate a little bit, because I'm more with you on this. But what if he truly, in his heart, believes he's a woman? I mean, whether you and I agree or disagree, what if that's truly, truly what he believes? Do
I,
you?
I'm not saying he doesn't. I don't know. But when somebody can't compete biologically before, and then let me ask you this: how many women do you hear about switching to the men's division?
That's a good point.
Nobody ever does that. You
It
never
does
hear about
happen
that.
though. It does happen though. But yeah, you're right. It is way
When?
less. It is way less.
In sports? Like, yeah, well, I'm not talking about a female kicker on a football team or something like that. I'm talking about like weightlifting or wrestling or something where your individual physical prowess comes into play.
There was one that I read. I believe it was wrestling. It went female to male, and she actually did all right. But it is definitely way less the stories you hear. Now that could be simply because those aren't the stories that make it. I don't know, but I see your point.
I mean, I don't know. What I'm looking at in this whole situation we're talking about, as far as competition goes, sports, any competitive deal, especially an individual sport. What about the girls that have been training their whole lives and they get a spot on the Olympic team and this guy's there? And he just
definitely think it's
steamroll him
unfair.
just because he's bigger and stronger because he's a biological male. That's my whole problem with it.
So Joey, your desire is for, if you biologically are still male, that you compete in the male division,
Yeah.
regardless, no matter what.
Yeah, I think that's what it should be. I mean, because you have, and especially like wrestling and weightlifting and things like that, individual sports, you have a decided advantage already walking into it. I mean, you just do. Now, like you know, there may be that fringe case where a woman did do wrestling or whatever and did well, but it's never been at the Olympics. I know that. I mean, are we talking high school? That's a little different. But
So I think we got two different trains of thought here, and here's how I'm seeing it. I agree with Joey. Me personally, how I feel about it. Common sense. Go kick fucking rocks. You got a penis. You need to be in the penis league. But legally, non-discriminatory, discrimination laws, blah 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 blah, inclusion. I agree with Socks in putting them in their own category.
yeah, I mean, if they would do that, I just wonder why they haven't already. Because then, I'll tell you why. You know why they're not doing that? Because then if you put them in their own division, you're singling them out, and now you're discriminating.
Yeah,
That's
that
probably
is-
what it would end up being. Or like I said, I just don't see there being. I mean, worldwide at the Olympics, yeah, they probably get enough people to do wrestling and whatever or anything like that. But I don't know. I just don't like the idea.
Discriminating at that point, or is it giving them recognition?
Recognition for what?
You know what? That's a good question. Who would get to make the call on that? Would it be the fringe people of that push this movement, or would it be the actual LGBT people who would feel either discriminated or recognized?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They would be like, well, why can't we just be in the women's league? Why are you discriminating against us, putting us in our own division? I mean, I don't.
That's a very good question.
If they would do that, if they would make those divisions, then yeah, that's fine. Why haven't they? I don't know. I mean, that would be a solution to it, but I don't think putting grown ass men against women, even at the Olympic level, I don't think that's fair to the women. I don't think it's fair to these girls that have, any sport. I don't think that's right.
So did we come to kind of a conclusion here that putting them in their own category should be the solution?
Yeah,
That's what
I think
I feel this day and age that is the only solution, because you can't tell people to shut the hell up anymore and just get over shit. So
Yeah.
I think that is the solution.
like I said, I don't know.
I don't have all the answers, man. I really don't know. The only reason I mentioned the other categories is just because I want everybody to be able to compete. I want inclusion. Just if I'm a trans athlete, I don't want to say, well, I love this fucking sport, but I can't do it competitively because I'm trans. Like I want everyone to be able to participate.
Mhm.
I just think it needs to happen in the right way. And I don't know, man, this ties into so many different things about
It does.
equality, just about equality. I mean, women biological women have been struggling for equality, anywhere and everywhere, voting rights, the workplace for years. So I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of if I had a 17-year-old daughter who say she played tennis and she'd been busting her ass and she trains hard and practices hard and she's working on this scholarship and she's going to, state and she gets put up against, a trans a transsexual woman, or you know, um, somebody that
Whichever
A
one it
identifies,
is.
biological
yeah,
male.
somebody that identifies as a female, and she has to compete against this person, and it might take away her scholarship. I mean, we're playing the what if game from hell right now, but I'm sure
Well, I
that this
mean, you're not really
situation
because it's happening
may
right
may,
now.
may happen. Yeah. Anyway, like I said, as far as me putting myself in someone else's shoes, how it would make me feel, and I don't know, because you want to teach your daughter about equality and tell her you are capable of anything that a man is capable of. One day you will be in the workplace, you can do just as good of a job as an accountant that a man can. I don't know, man. There's so many different things. I'd say, look, you're up against this person, fucking beat him, be better. I don't know. They might be a little bit faster, a little bit stronger. Beat them. You can do this. You're a strong young woman. You can do anything that a male can. So I just don't know, man. There are just so many things to consider
So
with
let me
this.
let me ask this, and I think this is going to take us into the second part of Pride Month conversation that I think a lot of people have an issue with is normalizing it. Whether you agree with it or disagree with it, a lot of people, and I included, I feel like when you do the Pride Month thing and the way that companies jump on board and the way it's thrown in your face, as it were, that you're normalizing the behavior. Now, some of the LGBTQ stuff may be more acceptable than others, but I am certainly not on board with the whole trans thing. I don't agree with it. I think it's weird. I don't think it should be normalized at all. I don't think it should necessarily be celebrated because, at least not the way they do it, because they're pushing it as a normal behavior and they're trying to push it onto preschoolers, kindergarten. They're trying to push it on everybody. And that part of the Pride Month, I do not agree with. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
So you and I actually we touched on this on Xbox the other night too
hmm That's what I
about
wanted to get
the
into.
the celebrating being gay is how you feel Pride Month is. And I
hmm
think it's more about, yes, are they celebrating being gay? Yes, they are. Absolutely. As they should. Good for them. But it's more about celebrating their fight for equality
hmm
and recognition. They get a month because it's about recognition for the mistreatment that they have suffered for decades. And I think it's not just, I'm gay, here's Pride Month, here it is. It's about looking at how far they've come and the fight that they've had for equality, to me at least, I think is what Pride Month is more about, rather than just, hey, I'm gay and it's Pride Month, you
Yeah.
know, here it is in your face.
So let me ask you this. When you see Pride Month and the way it is celebrated, the parades, the what I would consider over the top parades, do you think that that is in fact what they're celebrating, or has it taken on a new type of meaning and movement maybe? Like, do you think it is it's about a celebration of a struggle, or is it, hey, look at me, because that's how I see it when I see a lot of it.
You see it as, hey, look at me because of the over the top parades and the bright colors and the costumes?
Yes, that's a lot of how I see it.
So the bright colors and the costumes and things of that nature, whenever, um, oh man, what can I relate this to?
Tough subject matter.
Yeah, um, whenever the Astros won the World Series,
hmm
2017, and they had a parade to celebrate it, and there's confetti and big floats and bright orange colors, and everyone's wearing their Astros gear. Is that a hey, look at me? Yeah, kind of, but it's also a hey, look at what we just accomplished.
And I see the relation there, but I also see it as something that was accomplished right then and there. At what point do you stop celebrating something that happened however many years ago? What's an appropriate type of celebration? And
Well,
again, pushing more into my thing. I think it goes more beyond just a celebration. I think it's a pushing of personal values onto other people. So we're really talking about two different things here. But let's talk about just the celebrating. Um, yeah, I
Okay.
don't even agree with the
So, and
celebration.
I'm actually glad that you said that. When do you stop celebrating it? One, their fight is still going on. Their struggle for equality is still ongoing.
And
It's not,
explain that to me. What do you mean?
well, the equality that we've been talking about, trans people's inclusion in sports, the bathroom thing. I mean, in numerous ways, or gay marriage was only legalized in this country 6 years ago, in
Yeah.
2015. So, I mean, 6 years, not that long ago, we still celebrate the 4th of July, President's Day, a bunch of other archaic, events that happened. You say, when do we stop celebrating it? It's over. Okay. Uh, America's independence from Great Britain was, roughly 200 and some odd years ago. When do we stop celebrating that?
And I'm again glad you brought that up because after we had our conversation before, I actually sat back and thought about those exact same things you just said, and I tried to find relations that were different and similarities and stuff. And I don't think there's an actual answer to all of it, but I sat there and thought to myself, like you just said, July 4th. I thought about that. That's a national thing. That's everybody within these borders. Maybe that makes the difference. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong with this issue at all. I just saying, like you said to me the other day, I don't get it. And I think maybe uh, I think that it should be okay for us not to get it and not be chastised for not getting it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. And I mean, 4th of July is a federal and national holiday, but that doesn't mean that we are legally required to celebrate it, just as none of us are legally required to celebrate, Gay Pride Month. There's nothing that says, hey, it's Gay Pride Month in June, you're required to attend two parades and three, candlelight vigils. I mean, so I don't know. I just so
I mean, I
many
guess what I'm
so many
saying
different
is,
thoughts.
I think it should be acceptable, as we are doing now and making comments over it. Just it's okay to vent one way or the other on that. I think. Um, I just don't think either side should be chastised for it. We shouldn't be screaming at each other on Facebook for it. We shouldn't hate anybody for it. That is the one thing that makes this country great is you're allowed to have different opinions and you should have different opinions and you should still love each other for those opinions.
Absolutely.
But you did bring up the whole trans thing. Their fight for the bathroom. I want to touch on that. Where do you stand on that? Here, I'll
Um,
give you my position. I don't give a
okay.
shit. I don't think it should be since they want to change the words, they want to change the language, change what gender means, sex means, this and that. Just put a picture of a penis on a bathroom door and a picture of a vagina, and really it's simple. Make everything simple.
It
I
really
don't
doesn't.
think
What do you do for people that have both? You know, I
family
think it
restroom.
simplifies it, but it doesn't.
Use
So
a
I'll let,
tree
I'll
out
let you I'll
back.
let you finish, and then I'll give you my opinion on the bathroom.
Um, I'm not a big thing of the whole trans movement. I definitely don't understand it. I think that there's definitely some gender dysphoria. That was the old psychological term for it. Now it's faux pas. They're supposed to be just normal people. I've personally known some. I've personally had some in the family, very, very close to me, and it does not change my opinion about it whatsoever. I don't think it's a normal behavior. I don't chastise them for it. I don't hate them for it. It's your own thing, but I don't think it should be normalized, and that is a problem I have with Pride Month, is normalizing something like trans behavior, because you see all these stories about parents pushing it on their 2-year-olds, 1-year-olds, saying my 8-month-old has identified as a female, and I'm going to dress him up in pink clothes, this and that. I have issues with all of this. The drag queen story times at all the libraries and stuff. I've got articles about that for days. That part of Pride Month I disagree with. I think they're pushing the normalization of certain behaviors I don't necessarily agree with. Go ahead.
Okay. Um, some very good points there. So as far as the bathroom thing goes, I'll do that first, and then we'll talk more about the trans movement and drag queen story time and things like that. So the bathrooms. The way my problem solving brain works, I am all for single occupancy restrooms across the country. Maybe it's a cop out, but me,
No, it's
even as
not.
a,
It's
even
not.
as a
You ever read?
straight male, I don't enjoy going to the ball game and every single urinal is full, and I have some freaking guy walk up next to me while I'm doing my business. It's not a comfortable experience.
Stop being so
I don't.
homophobic, Jesus.
No, it's an intimate. The
It's a
restroom is made.
penis. No, you're right. That's a good word. Intimate. I like that.
So I don't think that there's any problem with single occupancy restrooms.
Well, yeah, but
honestly, I don't understand why the restroom has to be a shared space.
right, but that it is what it is, and you don't like other guys walking up, pissing next to you in the trough at an Astros game, but in the name of including people, I'm supposed to be okay with a grown-ass biological man walking into the same bathroom as my daughter.
And in a women's restroom, Joey, where your daughter, for example, would be, what are the open areas where any sort of a body part would be exposed or something inappropriate would happen? There are single occupancy stalls in a women's restroom, correct?
I see what you're trying to.
So
nickel and
she's
dime
in a
there, but
stall
there are-
doing her business, and he's in a stall doing his or her business. And
Would you be comfortable with a man
Shans-
walking into that restroom with your daughter? Period.
Me? No.
How old is my daughter?
8.
Yeah.
Really?
Mhm.
That's interesting. I would be very uncomfortable. There have been stories. I'll have to look them up. We'll flash them up on the screen here about trans. What is it? Is it trans women that would go into a women's restroom? Trans women who have gone in and tried to diddle little kids and stuff. There are some stories out there. Obviously, they're not. I don't know. I can't even say obviously.
That's not going to be the majority, but it does give people who that's their main intention is to take advantage of that happening nowadays. It's people who aren't even trans acting like they're trans.
Yeah.
You know,
here's
go
my
do
thing.
shit like that.
I don't see how that's any different than letting my 6-year-old son walk to the men's restroom and a straight male or CIS male walks into the restroom and tries to diddle him.
You're right.
Well,
where's
it's not.
the
It's not. But by allowing biological men to go into a female's restroom, you're opening the door not to trans people that aren't going to do anything, but you are opening the door for people that want to do that anyway, and that
Like
gives
women.
them. You're basically taking a barrier down.
Yeah, very good. God damn, this is a great discussion. Very good way to put it. You are taking a barrier down. There's definitely a lot more women, or excuse, as I was, a lot more men who pedophiles against women who would rape and steal children and shit. So you are definitely taking a barrier down. Definitely disagree with the barrier going down.
So, I don't know, man. Just the way, I don't know. And it's a lot of the what if game. I don't have an 8-year-old daughter, but I'd like to think that we're at a restaurant, I'm sorry, and she has to use the restroom. I'm going to be cognizant of how long my 8-year-old daughter is in there, who walks in front of, behind her, if she's in there, any longer than it normally takes an 8-year-old girl to use the restroom. I'm knocking on the door. I'm asking, somebody to check on her. I don't know, man. So there's just so many different things.
Well, I mean, if a trans male can walk in there, why can't you as a male just walk in there as a dad? Say, hey, my daughter's got to go in here. I'm going in. Sorry.
Very good point. Maybe we need to
and I know
normalize it.
it's a rhetorical
different
question.
behavior.
I know you wouldn't for the same reason I wouldn't, because
I think some people do, though.
well, what I would do if
or
I
maybe take her to the men's restroom with you.
yeah,
That's what I do.
when Maddie was little, I'd tell her to cover her eyes, and we'd walk in, and I'd take her into a stall, and she'd go. If I was only there, of course, if my wife was there, she would take her into the women's bathroom.
And Joey, I would probably do the same thing, but then I present the question of, is she not more likely to see a full man's penis, a grown man's penis in the men's room than she is in the women's restroom where the stalls are divided?
Not when I take her into a stall and she's got her hands over her eyes and her all of it in my shoulder until I put her in the stall like I would do. That's me taking care of her and her doing what she needs to do. But you let the other way, you're depending on some fucking psycho, some pedophile not to do what he wants to do. And like I said, odds are it ain't gonna happen. But you allow men to go into women's bathrooms, you open that door, not like I said, not for the trans people who are actually just going to the bathroom, but some fucking pedophile, guess what? It's just something for somebody like that to exploit, take advantage of. So
No,
The
because
example,
some people might, because a select few might take advantage of that opportunity. That means that we cannot allow this entire group of people.
okay, yes, and here's why. To rephrase exactly what you just said. So, because of a small group of people, we should allow them to just defy science and let them say they're a woman now? I mean, it's literally the same argument. What makes their argument so great that yes, we should let you do this thing that's completely abstract, not normal. You can go use this other restroom now, simply because you have a feeling that you belong in that restroom.
I hear you. What was the second
Fucked
part
up
of this
conversation, isn't it?
topic that we were going to discuss? I remember the restrooms, and then there was
The
some.
normalization of trans behavior.
Okay, that's right.
Kind of tying in what we're talking about.
Forcing it on children, and what'd you call it? Gender dysphoria.
Normalizing. Yeah,
Or-
gender dysphoria. Yeah.
So I don't know. This is where some of my other beliefs cross over and just kind of have shaped and molded me as who I am as a person.
This is what I wanted to get into because I know you have a little bit more liberal views on it.
So I am not religious. I don't know if I can say that on your podcast.
oh yeah.
They're Jewish.
And speaking as to the forcing it on children, kind of the indoctrination,
Mhm.
that's really how I feel about religion when it comes to minors,
feel
or
the
at
same
least or at least people who have not yet developed critical thinking skills of their own.
I was raised Catholic, so I feel the exact same way. I have not
I
baptized my child. I don't feel like they're at an age of infant to be able to say, yes, I want to be Catholic the rest of my life. I agree with that assessment.
Yeah, so Sunday school, things of that nature, baptisms, forcing your child to attend church every Sunday, um, is kind of how I feel about this stuff. That being said, I do not think that educating them on a subject or an entire group of people is the same thing.
I
I do
agree.
not think that taking, and I'm sure you're going to pull up some articles that dispute what I'm about to say. I do not think that taking your child to drag queen story time is forcing them or saying, do this, be like this. And you may disagree that point. But if I take my son to a baseball game, it's not saying, hey, be like this, be a baseball player. It's just it's an entertainment factor. I want to take them to see people perform, and I think that that's what it is.
I see your point. 100% see your point, and I agree with you. Um, and I also agree that it's the parent's job to say, "Hey, I don't agree with that." The parents are going to teach their own values and morals to their child, so they would point out their own points of view on that. What I'm more pointing out to is in relation to Pride Month, where you see all these commercials now, where you've got, and again, I 100% agree with you on the education about a group of people. You should definitely be taught about that. 100% that they do exist. This is what they are.
Yeah,
Knowledge
you
is
don't want your
power.
kid to be 13 and you're walking through Target and
Yeah,
they see, a drag queen or a transsexual person, and they're staring at them and pointing and saying, what the fuck?
yeah.
What is this?
Knowledge
You
is
want them to
power.
be
I love that.
educated about it.
But I think when you're, the same reason advertising is the way it is to plaster images all over media and books and everything, to put it in your face, normalize it, make it the norm. When you're doing that with something, dare I say, faux pas as trans, I think you're trying to normalize it and push it. And there are lots of stories out there where schools are trying to push it. Where schools were actually doing it against parents' consent, not letting them know about bringing in the cross dressers and things like that. And of course, that's not the norm and the majority, but it is happening. I think they're trying to normalize the behavior and actually push it on, because you're not allowed to come out against it because you're a bigot, right? So they are the majority, the media, the masses, if you will, are trying to normalize it, and you are not allowed to have a disagreement about the trans movement. So
I think this lends to the topic of the subjective definition of normal. because you keep
Oh,
saying
absolutely.
it's not the norm, it's not normal,
Status
it's not.
quo.
I mean, everyone's definition of normal, I think, is different. To me,
Absolutely.
I see TV televangelist speaking in tongues. To me, that is not something that is normal. But
Status quo in mainstream, then maybe a better word. I think it's definitely being pushed as the status quo and mainstream thing to do. I think they are trying. When I say normalize, I'm saying socially accepted. As far as it is a tough way to phrase that. I think they are trying to make it a very normal thing, and I personally just completely disagree with it. God, it's so hard to talk about it.
So it's not normal or status quo because it differs from your own
I
gender and
think
sexuality, or
I
mean,
just
because it's a minority and not a majority. I mean,
and here we come into the philosophical. What
yeah, because
makes
where
it
does that stop
abnormal?
on that? Because
You're
where does it
absolutely right.
stop?
It's all personal preference. So maybe the discussion we should be having is where do you draw that personal line of shit you should and shouldn't be putting out into the mainstream? Maybe sexuality at all shouldn't be out there the way that we put it out there as a society. I don't know.
Well, and to touch on that too, I don't think Roy's saying this shit needs to stop, or whatever. But Roy couldn't go out in public and say that, or because I don't think a whole lot of people are going to hear this podcast, but if enough people heard it, somebody in the group is going to get pissed off and call us bigots. So I think what Roy's saying more than anything is they have all the rights, and people who don't agree with what they might be doing, whatever it is, if it's not if it's socially acceptable, all this LGBTQ stuff, and that's like it is, and companies pander to it, and it's the socially right thing to do is support that. But if you disagree with it, then you're wrong, and you're the bigot. In other words, you can't have an opinion against any of that.
That's definitely an
without hearing
underlying
it.
theme to this whole podcast. I would agree with that 100%.
I guess,
And I think that's
like
a bigger
in
problem
in the
with power
past
media.
in the past 5 to 10 years, how many gay people have been fired from a job for being gay, versus how many people have been fired from their job for saying something about somebody being gay?
Very good point. We could do a whole nother podcast. Shit.
It's
So,
just like
The pendulum switch. Yeah.
it's
I think that the difference between those two things is that firing someone for being gay on paper, if you were to write that down, you've just opened yourself up to all sorts of civil rights lawsuits.
Yes.
Whereas firing somebody and writing on paper their reason for termination is hate speech or something of that nature is something that is, from a legal aspect, completely acceptable and understandable.
right
Yeah,
to
not
somebody who
technically,
disagrees
no,
with
but
the
we can get
person
into
who
that.
said it.
But
I
then
guess
again,
what I'm saying is
what if
I'm
it
not
wasn't-
all about hate speech, but
What if it wasn't hate speech? What if it was a private conversation? Because this happens all the time. Somebody overheard a private conversation and it got relayed third party, fourth party to somebody who was gay and they got fired. What Joey's saying is you are not allowed to be the antithesis of any of this, or you are a piece of shit, and you are called out on it now.
yeah.
the only solution I have to that is,
Everybody, shut the fuck up.
well, just keep discussions like that out of the workplace. I mean, don't lean up against the water cooler and talk to Bob about Pete from accounting and his lifestyle that he lives on the weekend. You want to talk to Bob at his house at his barbecue, that's fine. But
To the contrary,
don't do it in the office.
You
A
can still
trans
get
guy-
fired for that.
a trans guy can
mean-
walk up to that same water cooler and talk about putting penises and this and that, and you're not allowed to tell him to stop.
Oh, you absolutely are. You can go to HR. I'm sure your company has some sort of sexual harassment policy, because
There's a lot of
that's
stuff.
not appropriate.
Absolutely, it's not. But there's a lot of things where that you would think that is the appropriate course of action, and you were the one told to shut up. He's gay, he can do what he wants, or vice versa. I think there's definitely been a pendulum shift to the extreme on the other end. God, we just can't find a happy medium in this country.
Well,
It fucking
that
seems
sounds like an internal problem within the company then, and I can't solve every single company's problems, but that's definitely not fair in my opinion. If the trans person comes up,
But I
and
think that's the way it is
sexual
in
relations,
everyday life now. Like I
well,
said,
you should absolutely be able to go to your company's HR department.
not just
about-
that. My personal opinion. I would be chastised. Let's say somebody in my job heard this podcast right now, I might get fired. There's no fucking telling. We hear stories about that all the time. I think fucking America just needs to take a goddamn chill pill. Words are just words sometimes. So anyway, we're running a little long on this one. I think we definitely hit a lot of really, really, really great fucking talking points. I wish we could keep going. I wish we could branch this one off into several other fucking episodes, and maybe we will, Socks. I'd love to have you back on. This is a great conversation that opened up a lot of different avenues and windows and thoughts, and I don't know, maybe we changed some minds, just maybe clarified some things, or at least just brought some fucking people together to just agree to disagree. I think that was the big thing I wanted to get out of this, if anything, is we can agree to disagree and still be friends, hopefully. We'll find out if Socks accepts my friend request or my invite to play Call of Duty later or not.
Unfriend. Click.
Y'all still play that shit? Holy shit.
We
But
took
yeah,
about
Roy,
a month off.
I definitely would be maybe interested in a part two because there's just so many different things as far as this topic goes and other topics that I think need to be a civil discussion needs to be had on a lot of these things, you know.
Absolutely. Well, it was a pleasure having you. I enjoyed the fuck out of it. Final thoughts. Honestly, I don't know what we really gained out of it other than at least we got to put it out there and talk about it. I think there's a lot more. If anything, I think we can take away from this. On face value, we may have disagreed on some very, very poignant topics, but I think once we broke it down, we came together to get a lot closer to an understanding. And I think that's what we lack on social media and in politics and everything now is to that ability to even come closer together and talk about shit and make any fucking sense out of what's going on.
Well, and I think like you kind of said at the beginning, I mean, we kind of nailed it at the beginning. It's not a problem with the people that were the groups we're discussing. It's a cultural problem. It's social media. It's cancel culture and all this other shit that is tied to all this when you talk about it. And I think that's the bigger problem.
Agreed.
Sure.
Outstanding. All right. Well, thank you all for listening. Socks, thank you for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure, contrary to what Joey said it was going to be.
That's not true.
And this is Star-Lord and Joey signing off. Thanks for listening.
Later.